English channel. My name is Shubham Sagar. Today we have to talk about advent of Europeans in India. This is lecture 26, So again, I keep on telling you people revise lecture 25 as well as the orientation session. So we'll talk about advent of Europeans. We'll talk about the arrival of Portuguese, arrival of Dutch, arrival of English, Danes and French. Same order you have to remember, So 1498, if I write it somewhere, I will not go to the next slide because if I go to the next slide, you will see the question. I don't want you to see the question right now. So there are these dates which you have to remember. 1498, 1605, 1608, 1620, 1664 if I am not wrong. So 1498 Portuguese arrived, 1605 Dutch arrived, 1608 English arrived, 1620 Danes arrived. People from Denmark arrived. They are also known as Danish people. And then 1664 French arrived. So please understand this chronology because this chronology is important somewhere. In so many exams, I think even in UPSC, some year like 20, 30 years back, they have asked this particular chronology. They have already asked this question, which of these following, European powers arrived last? So anyway, this chronology is very important. So we have to talk about them. Today we'll talk about 3 group of Europeans. And again, we will talk about all these things. First of all, before we talk about these Europeans, why they arrived, what is Armada, Fitorias. So there are different words where you have to, pronounce it in a different manner. We'll go there. But first of all, sir and ma'am, let's be serious. Let's do some practice questions so that you can revise whatever we have done earlier, studied earlier. PQ1, practice question 1. Which among the following? Sometimes even by listening to my own voice, my head, hurts. So again, let's focus. Which among the following is correct with respect to the Harappan civilization? First, fortification was found at Chanudado site of Harappan civilization. Second, red and black pottery or black and red pottery was found in Harappan settlement. They are one and the same. Sita is Gita, Gita is Sita, Ram is Shyam, Shyam is Ram. Third, flowing evidence have been found in Kalibangan. Select the correct answer. A, 1 and 2 only, B, 2 only, C, 2 and 3 only, D, 1, 2 and 3. Why I am stating all the options? Because there are so many good friends of mine who are, Divyang, sometimes people who are not able to see, but still they hear my lecture and I feel so blessed because of that. So yes, sir, what is the answer? See, we have discussed this. Please go and revise this Indus Valley Civilization lecture. You know how important it is. We have discussed some exceptional sites, some sites which are very important from exam perspective. Chanudado, there is no citadel, so no fortification. Whereas in Dholavira, you have also the middle town, 3 parts. So first statement is wrong. Second statement is correct. Third statement is correct. Kalibangan, black bangles, Guriye kalaiyan, pehna de mujhe kali kali chuniya. So what the girl is trying to say is her, whatever is like white and fair and she wants lal chuniya, whatever, different colors of chuniya. So here also Kalibangan is black bangles. When we were discussing about Kalibangal, we have discussed that this is an intermediary site between Eastern Harappan sites or civilization and the Western. It's acting as a, even if you take it in simple terms, rough terms, sites in India, sites in Pakistan, which is acting as a linkage between them. That particular site is Kalibangan. And very interesting site, so many things, fire altars, flowing evidence, and then some people say, man, it was also a manufacturing center. So third statement is also correct. The answer is C2 and 3 only. Let's move on. C2 and 3. Question was good. Let's see this practice question number 2. Which of the following statements are correct regarding social, economic and political life in the post-Mauryan age? First statement, Vedic sacrifices were absent in the post-Mauryan empire. Second point, gold coins, silver coins, lead coin strips were major items of import by India from Rome in the post-Mauryan period. Third, Vikram Samvat calendar was started by King Kanishka of Kushana Empire. Select the correct answer using the code given below. A, 1 only, B, 2 only, C, 2 and 3 only, D, 1 and 3 only. So what is the answer, sir and ma'am? See, whenever we have talked about this, I think 1,000 times or maybe 1 million times. Okay, this can be an exaggeration, but hope you're understanding. Absent. This is an extreme word, bro. Or this is an extreme word, bro. If we take into component of vowel, vowel consonant. So they were absent. They were not absent. Even if one people perform Vedic sacrifice in post-Mauryan empire, this statement will be wrong. So the probability of this statement being wrong is very, very high. This statement is indeed wrong. Eliminate 1. You are left with B and C, 2 only, 2 and 3 only. So you don't have to even check for 2. So these things were imported from Rome and there were Pliny, there were different Roman authors. They were like, oh my God, drain of wealth is happening from Rome to India. See, in Britishers period, when colonial period, drain of wealth was was happening from India to Britain. Our money was going to Britain. Here the exact opposite thing is being what Pliny says, who is a Roman author, and there were so many people, Pliny, Strabo, etc. They were all crying that so much money from Rome goes to India, gold coins, silver coins. This lead coil strip, some people believe that this was being used by Satvahana rulers to make their lead coins. We have seen how their coins were not very good, to be very, respectful to Satvahana people. We have seen their coins which had, ships made on them and all those. So again, second statement is correct. Third statement, Vikram Samvat calendar was not started by King Kanishka. Vikram Samvat was started by King Vikramaditya of Ujjain, who is said to have defeated a Saka ruler. King Kanishka started Shaka era from 78 AD. This also we have discussed. So the answer is B, 2 only. Again, a good question. If you have got these questions correct, you can say that or state that in the comment section. Let's move on, bros and sisters. So European penetration in India, we have to talk about Portuguese. They were the first who arrived in India 1498. And if you do, there is sometimes what happens when I was in school or you people were in school. So somebody gets the topper rank and he's getting around, let's say, 96% marks. The second topper is 84. So there is no comparison between the first and the second topper. Similarly, if you see here, Portuguese, they arrived in 1498. The second European power, which will be arriving here, they will be arriving in 1605 and they will be Dutch. So there is no, and then the competition will start. 1608, English will be here. You may feel like 1600 East India Company was established, but they were here in 1608. 1620 Danish people will come. 1664 French will come. So after this, in Hindi we call it Bhasad. The whole Bhasad or the, since he is going, so I will also go. Herd mentality started from 1600s onward. But before that, almost for 100 years, Portuguese were the sole people here and they were enjoying, first come, whoever is, there is also one phenomena which is known as if you have started something, you will gain maximum out of it. Portuguese could have gained more out of it if not for their religious conversion thing, if not for their Kartas system, if not for other reasons also. If you see Portugal, it is surrounded by a country called Spain and Spain is very big. So there was also a period where Spain, 1580 to 1640, if I'm not wrong, where even, Portugal was annexed by Spain, or the Spanish ruler said that he is the king of Portugal also. So there were other things also which were going on, because of which this Portuguese people, they were not able to extract that much advantage, which English EIC will do or extract later on. We'll talk about it. You will understand what I'm saying, right? Means later on. But see, this particular map, you have to have a look at it, because what we have discussed up until now, whatever lectures we have done up until now, 25 lectures, and one orientation session. So you may have realized that map is one of the most important source which we follow. And many people don't follow maps when it comes to history. They follow it in geography, etc. or IR, international relation, but you have to follow it in history as well. So this particular map, you can use it for looking at different settlement, but don't, use it for the dates. The dates are majorly wrong, as it happens, because there are so many debates related to dates. So you won't be using it for dates, you will be using it for the, the settlement per se. Let's say Kochi we are saying. So Kochi is a Portuguese settlement if we are saying, and here the symbol will tell you which kind of settlement we are talking about. So Kochi, it was not established in, let's say, 1500, it was established in 1505, but it will give you an idea. Kannur or Kannur, 15010. So 1510, we'll talk about all these things. Then Goa. So dates, you can forget about dates right now. Just look at the locations where these places are and which settlement they belong to. That is important from exam perspective. Rest all things you will remember. We will discuss that. Fine. So let's continue our discussion. Major European powers that came to India. This is the order in which they came also. We have discussed this, and you have to remember the years in which they came. They can always give you a chronology question. 1608, 1620, 1664. So French came last. And this we have to keep in mind. Let's move on. Then the Portuguese people. So these, again, we have discussed this, or you people may know about it, that why these European people, they wanted to, or they were searching for India or Indonesian islands, because of spices, one major reason, because of, expansion of trade. Spices, they needed it for different purpose, for refrigeration purpose, and so many other things. Trade also, Arab traders, they were doing so many stupid things, and Europeans, they were fed up of, like Arab traders, what they were doing. They were involved in a bi-directional kind of a trade, you can understand. So they were trading with European people, they were trading with Indian people. So they were taking goods from us and selling it to European people at higher prices. European people were like, dude, if we directly engage with India, India was, at that time, we have continuously talked about it, one of the richest country in the world. Some people believe it was the richest country in the world around 1700 when Aurangzeb was ruling. Again, irony. So again, so you can understand there are different factors. Spice is one factor, and spices is one factor, and then breaking the monopoly of Arab trader is another factor, because of which there will be research also done. Research, R&D, research and development. By that particular R&D word, you will, or you may have read it in Hindu or Indian Express, that one of the issues associated with our country is we do development, but research is lagging to a certain extent. R&D. We are doing D, we are ignoring R. Okay, we'll go there later on. So Portuguese became the first one to have navigated the entire African coastline, and they did that. Bartholomew Dias, 10 years before Vasco da Gama came, he went around the Cape of Good Hope. So Cape of Good Hope. Now here also, please understand, from exam perspective, history and geography are merging. We have to understand, what does this word Cape means? Cape is what? Just like we have discussed about strait, isthmus. So whenever you are reading strait, read isthmus. Panama Strait, Panama isthmus, and then you have Strait of Gibraltar, you have Park Strait. So what does the strait means? So whenever you are reading strait, you have to read isthmus at the same time. You know? So strait and isthmus, strait, narrow water body connecting two larger water bodies. So again, in the comment section, you can post Strait of Gibraltar connects to which two larger water bodies. Then you have isthmus, narrow landmass connecting two larger land masses. Okay. Then you have Gulf and Bay. We have discussed about it. Gulf and Bay, they are both basically the same. Water body mainly surrounded by land from three sides, but generally Gulf is greater than Bay. Bay of Bengal is an exception. Now, what is Cape here? Cape is a land mass which has extended into a water body. Land mass which has extended into a water body, and that water body can be lake, can be pond, can be sea, can be ocean, can be river. It can be anything. So that is the basic meaning of Cape. So do look for these words. What do they mean? Fine. So they named it Cape of Good Hope in 1498, and in 1488 rather, and in 1498, 10 years after, Vasco da Gama will do this voyage, and he will come to India, Calicut. Then he will, he will come to India multiple times. He will take goods from India, sell it almost at 50 times what he, at what he purchased, because this is not like he's going from, one place to another place which is 6 kilometers away. It's a very long distance which he's covering. So it's not only about, let's say he bought certain things at 100 rupees here, so he cannot sell it at 200 rupees in Lisbon. He won't have any profit. So 60 times. So 60 times is 16 to 100, 6,000 rupees. He sold it at 6,000 rupees. That is actually a good amount. So all these things happened. Then he died because of this girl. So this girl got attracted towards, Vasco da Gama. And attraction is not always beneficial for you. And this attraction proved, died. Vasco da Gama died because of it. So fatal attraction it was. Oh my God. This is so stupid. Fatal attraction. So rare picture of the only female attracted to me. And again, don't take it as an, joke. Female Anopheles mosquito, this malaria which we are talking about. Later on, when you will read, Scramble for Africa, world history, you will realize that why Africa was colonized so late. We talk about 1870 to 1914, around that period, Scramble for Africa happened. European powers, they, divided African places or countries among them. Why it happened so late? One reason is that particular female. That fatal attraction. At that time, when, Africa was like, there were so many female Anopheles mosquito, so many malaria cases, there was no cure for malaria. Quinine was, discovered later on. So this was one reason. Then the second major reason was non-navigable rivers. In Africa, non-navigable rivers. There were so many rivers which you cannot go via using traditional boats, etc. So when they had steamboats and the advancement in technology happened as far as ships and all these boats are concerned. Then they were able to navigate these so-called non-navigable rivers, plus the insularity of African people, tribal people. But that is the third reason. These two were the major reason. Malaria, non-navigable rivers. And when they got the solution for all these things, they had already had advancement in technology as far as artillery and weaponry is concerned. So they came and they did scramble for Africa. So this is not a joke, although it seems like a joke to you. Fine. So Vasco da Gama reached Calicut on May 17, 1498, which was ruled by a local king, that is King Jamorin. Fine. He came, and we have talked about this. He came as a trader and he bought from India, and whatever he took from India, it was sold for 60 times the cost of his voyage. And we have talked about all these things. He returned to India 2 more times. Who wouldn't? If you're getting that much profit, who wouldn't? He successfully established a sea route from Europe to India. You can read this. We have discussed this. And see, this is actually very fascinating. So they are going by sea, and you say this is a safe route, because at that time, those people whom we talk about here and these guys, these African pirates, they are very much in news, Somalian pirates. So if you see, it's somewhat far from Somalia as well. So it was a safer route compared to the land route to Europe, which was because in Central Asian tribal people, Hunas, how they impacted in Indo-Roman trade during the period of Gupta Empire. So that's what they are saying in the last para. He successfully established a sea route from Europe to India that would permit trade with the Far East. Now, there are different terms. Please understand these terms. Far East, Middle East. Sometimes what happens, because we read international relations, we say, there's UAE or Saudi Arabia as Middle East. Dude, that is Western Asia for us. For people who are in US or these guys, that will be Middle East. And Japan will be Far East. But for us, we are in India. That is Western Asia. So don't follow European people or American people in all aspects. Please understand these nomenclature. When we are talking about Middle East or Far East, so Far East, European people will say Far East for Japan, or American people will say Far East for Japan. But for us, Japan is not Far East. It's East, but not Far East. Similarly, for us, forget about Japan, that's still fine. But for us to be saying that UAE and Saudi Arabia is Middle East, that's stupid. It's Western Asia. Please understand this. Where do they lie? So always be on the lookout. These mistakes many people do. You are no exception. I also used to do it. Then I realized what stupidity I am doing. So don't do these kind of stupidity. Fine. Without the use of costly and unsafe silk route caravan. Again, that's what we have discussed. Hunas, etc. Eastern spices. Why they want, why everybody is behind India? Because we are awesome. That's fine. But apart from that, what? So Eastern spices we have discussed, it helped in refrigeration and it was in high demand, and this was one of the reasons. Plus they were fed up of Arab traders as well, and everybody will want, they won't, if we talk about intermediaries per se, would you want intermediaries? Let's say you have to talk to B. Would you want C in between you? Nobody wants a person who will come between two other people in every sphere of life. So we did not want, or not we, European traders, they did not want Arab traders to come in between them and the Indian trade. So that was also one of the reasons. Their factories, these Portuguese people, their factories were known as Fitorias. If any Portuguese friend of mine is watching this particular video, pardon me for pronouncing it wrong. Fitorias. And this, they had a very powerful navy. Mughals were terrified of them, and these naval fleets were known as armadas, and that would lead to something known as Kartas system, where anybody who is trading in the Indian Ocean or who is going from Indian Ocean, any ship, they have to take a permission from the Portuguese, the traders who are there, the Portuguese East India Company, if it can be called like that. So please understand, permission leni chahiye thi. There was a meme also in Gangs of Wasseypur that was, or we will talk about Kartas system, because of which terror will emerge in the Indian Ocean. Because if you don't follow that, and if you don't take a pass from these Portuguese people, they will, dip your particular ship in the ocean, dip your particular ship. So again, that ship will be drowned and you will lose all the properties or whatever you are carrying from one place to another. So they had a virtual monopoly, and that thing will also happen after a battle, which will be fought around 1509. We'll talk about that particular battle. Who will fight it? Is it Francisco de Almeida or Albuquerque or Nuno de Cunha? If you know it, you can post it in the comment section. You will just know about it soon. So again, what they are talking, what were they saying? Again, factories, etc. Please pay attention here. So initially, up until 1509, you will see Kochi and Kannur or Kannur. They are in Kerala. These are the areas where they are active. But in 1509, there will be a Portuguese Viceroy Governor General known as Albuquerque. He will capture Goa, 1510. So up until 1505 till 1530, Kochi will be the capital of Portuguese, whatever settlements they have. And then from 1530 till the independence, the Goa will be their capital. Then there will be Nova Goa, which will be there. So, but again, Goa will be the capital from 1530 onwards. Before that, Kochi was the capital. This you have to keep in mind. Fine. Now there are three major Portuguese viceroy, which we have to know. First Portuguese viceroy, that is Francisco de Almeida. First is anyway very important. We have talked about this, how, first ruler means first love, first this and that, first attraction, everything first is very important in our life. We don't forget it. UPSC also does not forget it. They asked questions like these. So first Portuguese viceroy in India, 1505, Francisco de Almeida. He will fight a battle called Battle of Dew. And here, as you can understand, when these guys arrived and what they are doing, they are making settlements, whether you want it or not. So people who were there on the coastal areas, or the kingdoms which were there in the coastal areas in this particular portion, which includes major portion of Western Ghats, they started feeling threatened, be it Zamorin of Calicut, or even the Sultan of Gujarat, or even the people who were there in Egypt, etc. So they came together, Sultan of Gujarat, Zamorin, and then some Egyptian king, you can have a look at it. All these people fought against Francisco de Almeida in this particular Battle of Dew, and they got defeated. That will lead to the emergence of blue water policy of Portuguese. They will keep a hold on this Indian Ocean till 1950s. Although that hold will be broken apart to a certain extent by English EIC, but still they had this particular hold. Because of this Battle of Dew, 1509, you have to remember this battle, and it was fought during the reign of which Portuguese viceroy. That is also important. What happened? What was the fate of this particular battle? Portuguese won, which established Portuguese mastery over the sea. This you have to understand. And not only, even if you forget about the Portuguese, it established European mastery in general over the Indian Ocean. That will remain up until 1950s, or up until our independence period, because till then these were the guys. First Portuguese, then English East India Company. They were determining who will be coming in the Indian Ocean, who will be trading, majorly determining. So that established, in a narrow sense, we can say Portuguese mastery over the Indian Ocean, but in a broader sense, we can say that this led to starting of European mastery over the Indian Ocean. First Portuguese, then English EIC. So Fort Anjideva was constructed. This is there in the Karnataka region. You can have a look at it. But this blue water policy point is very important. First, that is also important. And then he will be there till 1509. He will be killed. His son will also be killed in one of these battles, which will be happening along the Indian coast. He will not be killed in, India. He will be killed on African coast, again fighting some battle. So you can understand, even if you have glory, so that will come with some other repercussions. So as you keep on going higher and higher up the trajectory, you have to face higher and higher or bigger and bigger problems. So that thing we can understand from Francisco de Almeida's life. After Francisco de Almeida, in 1509, there will be another viceroy. His name will be Albuquerque. 1509 to 1515, he will be the viceroy. And he is the greatest viceroy, greatest Portuguese viceroy. And he did a lot of things. He had 3 aims. This guy, Albuquerque. You can, ignore the spelling. Albuquerque. So what he did, he had 3 aims. First, to keep a tab on the Islamic expansion. Second, to spread Christianity. Third, to keep a tab on the trade, or to expand the trading areas of Portuguese. So what he will do, he will capture Goa in 1510, and then later on, another Portuguese viceroy will come, Nino de Cunha. So again, my Portuguese friend, if you're preparing for UPSC, CSE, and you're watching this video, pardon me for the pronunciation point. So Nuno de Cunha, what he will do is, he will shift the Portuguese capital from Kochi to Goa in 1530. But the capturing of Goa will be done by this guy, Albuquerque. About him, which we'll talk about him in just few seconds from now, you will see. And then 1515, not only this Goa he will capture portion of Malaysia, Malacca. So he will establish Portuguese supremacy over Indian, these coast, western coast, which we are talking about, then Malaysia, Malacca, all these regions. And he's expanding Christianity, he's keeping a tab on the expansion of Islam. All these things are going on. And he's becoming too powerful, because of which what will happen? Politics will happen. Everything is fine, but politics is not good. And you will realize it here as well. So there in Portugal, people will start saying in the ears of the king that, bro, he wants to become the Portuguese ruler Albuquerque. That's why he's doing all these things. So dear king, get him killed, or you will be gone. Goa gone. So king was like, yes, you are true. Whatever you are saying is correct, bro. So I will do that. So he sent the adversary of Albuquerque to India and sent a notice to Albuquerque that you have to, resign from your post, blah, blah, blah. And when Albuquerque came to know that his, foe, his enemy will be coming here and he'll be the viceroy, he knew that he will be killed, and he was killed. And when this happened in around 1515 or 1516, he was killed. Then few days after, something, a few months after, king realized that, oh my God, I'm missing Albuquerque. At that time, there was a time lag, it took time for people to realize what has happened. So he was like, still Albuquerque is alive. So he sent some people that give Albuquerque the message that I need him here for this thing. And then the other guy will be saying that, sir, you already killed Albuquerque. You have given that particular message. Don't you remember that? So all these things happened. But again, ab pachtaye hot kya jab chidiya chuk gayi khet. What does that mean is, what is the, what is the use of sorrow or, feeling pity about yourself when you already have committed the crime, and you did commit a big crime by getting Albuquerque killed. So he was the greatest Portuguese viceroy, and then after a time lag will come Nuno de Cunha. And these three Portuguese viceroy are very important from exam perspective. Afonso de Albuquerque, who was the greatest viceroy of Portuguese in India. We have talked about his three aims. First, to keep a tab on Islamic expansion. Second, to expand Christianity. Third, to expand trade. He will do all these three things, not only in Portugal, even in India. When people came to know about his death, it is said in certain sources that people cried that, oh my God, Albuquerque, he died. So yeah, he died, people cried. See, that rhymed. So he expanded the trading centers. You can have a look at it. He conquered Goa from the Sultanate of Bijapur in 1510. Again, let's rewind. Bijapur, Golconda. So which particular period we are talking about? 1510. So this is the time period. If I ask you, 1510, who was the ruler of Vijayanagar Empire? What will you say? So you can post your answer in the comment section if you know it. And you can pause me here. Krishna Dev Roy. And that's why maybe Krishna Dev Roy, even Akbar later on, they did not like these Portuguese because they were very good in conquering or capturing territories, you know. So you can understand. Similarly, other areas such as Malaysia were also brought under the Portuguese rule. You know, Portuguese rule. Malaysia, Malacca region. So all these things. He was an efficient administrator. He abolished Sati, and maybe the implementation of UCC, Uniform Civil Code, which we are seeing in these Portuguese governed regions, can be traced back to a certain extent to Albuquerque as well. So all these things are happening. He will conquer Goa. In 1530, Goa will be made as the new Portuguese capital. These things are important. These Portuguese people, they will not only capture, you know, Kochi, Kannur, Goa, they will also capture Daman and Diu, Dadra and Nagar Haveli. And it is said that they will keep a tab on these areas. They will give most of these other areas to English and others. But they will have this Goa, they will have Daman and Diu, and they will also keep Dadra and Nagar Haveli with them. Dadra and Nagar Haveli will be made, or will be, you know, Portuguese will go away from those regions by 1954. The other two regions, Daman and Diu and Goa, that will be getting independence in 1961. So these things we have to keep in mind. Fine, sir and ma'am. So now what has happened? This suspicion thing we have just discussed, that the Portugal ruler, he became suspicious of Albuquerque and his intentions. When you are sleeping and your alarm didn't ring yet, but the amount of sleep you are getting is suspicious. So again, there is, you know, medicine for everything, but you don't have medicine for suspicion. So that is what we are understanding here. Seems suspicious. Then, after a certain time lag, Nuno de Cunha will come, who will be the third most important viceroy for us, because he will transfer the government head office, or Portuguese head office, from Kochi to Goa. Oh my God! You know, single people paradise, even couples go to Goa. So many of my friends are telling me to go to Goa. Okay, let's focus, bro. So please understand this. What was the capital before 1530? Kochi. From 1530 till, you know, the end of their rule, Goa or Nova Goa, that was their capital. Thus making Goa the official capital of Portuguese in India. The viceroys after him were not that efficient, which will lead to Portuguese decline. One thing which you hear about a lot is, around 1660s or something, Portuguese will give, you know, English East India Company some amount of land of Bombay as dowry. Why would anybody give dowry? See, there is a phenomena which is known as quid pro quo. Quid pro quo. What does quid pro quo means? Everything. Let's say I give you 1 rupee. So I want something from you. If you give me 2 rupee, you want something from me. So if Portuguese people gave Bombay as dowry, what did they want from English people or English EIC or English, you know, rule or monarchy in Britain? There has to be something. Nobody gives anything for free. There is always a quid pro quo. So here the basic issue is, if you again, we'll talk about the dowry thing. I'll show you. Okay, so this is the part. So dowry thing. Like this guy is saying that he will not take dowry. Mother is saying that nobody will give you dowry. And then he's saying that, oh my God, I have been embarrassed. And so again, I love this panchayat meme. So Indian father giving dowry. Why did Portuguese people give Mumbai or certain portion of Mumbai to EIC or English EIC as dowry? The reason is this map. If you see Portugal, Portugal is here. And the neighboring country of Portugal is Spain. Spain is huge compared to Portugal. That is a no-brainer. You can see the map, right? So around 1580, Portugal was captured by Spain. Spain made Portugal a part of, you know, Spain. So 1580 to 1640, that was the scene. And then they again asserted their independence, Portuguese people. Around 1660s or 1650s, 1660s, they were fighting again a war with Spain. And Portugal people, they needed help from English people or, you know, England. And they were like, dude, help us. In return, we'll give you Bombay. So this is the whole story. Now you're understanding something about why like the Dory thing happened, what was the major reason behind it? Very good. Let's go back, bros. So Nino di Cunha, we have talked about all these things. This is a question in front of you. Hopefully you would have not seen the answer of this question when I was, changing the slides. So what is the answer of this question, sir and ma'am? Which of the following territories were part of Portuguese colony? A, Goa, B, Daman and Diu, C, both of the above, D, neither of the above. What do you want to say about it? So the answer is both. We have just discussed Goa, Daman and Diu, Dadra and Nagar Haveli. All these territories were part of Portuguese colony. C, both of the above. And again, this was the Dory thing which we have just discussed. Portuguese in 1661, Portuguese were at war with Spain and needed support from England, which led to marriage of, you don't have to remember who married, Shubham sang this and that. You may have seen those banners. And Swati sang Varun or something like that. So here you don't have to remember Catherine sang what or these things. That does not matter. What matter is what was the reason for Portuguese giving Bombay as Dory to English people or English crown or England. So this is the story behind it we have just discussed. This is the beginning of strong English presence in India as well. And this is 1661, bro. This is like we have discussed 1608 English people will come to India. 1605 Dutch people will come to India. Although Dutch East India Company will be established in 1602, English East India Company will be established in 1600, but they will come, Dutch people will come earlier than English EIC. So Portuguese finally left India. India it is, in the mid 17th century AD, but three of their settlements were there with them, Goa, Daman and Diu and Dadra and Nagar Haveli. And Dadra and Nagar Haveli, they left it in 1954. Goa and Daman and Diu got their independence in 1961. So these are some points which we have to keep in mind. Fine, sir and ma'am, let's move on. Now, when you see this particular image, we have talked about Portugal and Spain. We have discussed the issue. So here, the big brother, small brother things comes into picture. Spain is big and they used to capture Portugal. So sometimes what happens, India is also a very big country. It is surrounded by small neighbors, Bangladesh, you have Sri Lanka, you have Bhutan, you have Nepal, you have. So sometimes these people also feel like that maybe India will annex us just like Spain annexed Portugal. So does India play big brother to its neighbors? This question has been asked a lot of times in mains, So what is your view regarding it in UPSC and state PSC? So what our question similar to this. So what is your view regarding this? Does India play a big brother to its neighbors? Yes or no? Whatever is your view, you can post it in the comment section, if you want to, or if you have any specific view regarding it. Now let's come back. So we are talking about Portuguese, and Portuguese, whenever you are talking about Portuguese, this whole lecture would not be complete without us talking about this Kartas system. CPAS introduced by Portuguese East India Company. Because they had a naval supremacy, they were like, dude, if you don't listen to us, we will kill you and we will drown your ship. Oh my God. And that's why Ravish sir is saying that there was a whole environment of fear around the people that, oh my God, even Mughal people. We have discussed about Jahangir, 1609-15, what happened? William Hawkins, Sir Thomas Roe, and how he was little hesitant towards giving English EIC the rights or, the permission to establish different settlements because they were wary of these Portuguese people. In the 15th century, both the Arab and Persians were dominant in the Indian Ocean region. However, by the 16th century, 1509, Battle of Diu, Blue Water Policy, Francisco de Almeida, we have talked about it. Due to their strong naval power, Portuguese superseded the Muslim dominance and thus introduced the Kartas system as a mark of their sovereignty and dominance. Give a full stop here, and we have discussed about all these things. The Kartas pass issued by Portuguese entitled the holder freedom of movement in Indian Ocean, but you have to pay us something. Quid pro quo. First time it was issued in 1502. As a result, Indian and Perso-Arab merchants suffered and eventually the maritime trade declined. So again, what does it tell you? History belongs to the victors. You have to always look brave. Even if you're not brave, pretend to be brave. No one can tell the difference, but you have to be brave. Portuguese were the victors later on when EIC will defeat, English East India Company will defeat Portuguese people or Portuguese EIC in 1612 Battle of Swali. Then again, the rising sun will be English EIC and they will get the permissions to establish settlements and they will do that. So all these things are telling you how history is generally written by the victors. So what are the causes of failure of Portuguese in India? So lack of good leadership. We talked about three viceroys. First, second, Francisco de Almeida, Albuquerque, and then after some time, like Nino de Cunha. But they did not have good leadership. When we will talk about English EIC, you will hear about Robert Clive and so many other people. Robert Clive is not the only person we will hear about. So there was a good amount of leadership which you will see in English EIC. Corrupt administration, this point you can write anywhere and everywhere. Neglect of the home government, salaries of these officials, Portuguese officials, they were low. So they were like, dude, let's do some corruption. We will not be able to survive in this meager salary, bro. We have to do some corruption. And because again, when we are talking about corruption, there is a homework for you. There is a index which is known as Corruption Perception Index. The homework is, who publishes it? Is it Transparency International or some other organization? Second point, what is India's rank in Corruption Perception Index? Second ARC Ethics and Governance Report, what does it say about corruption in India? They say that in most of the countries, corruption is an exception rather than a norm. In India, corruption is a norm rather than an exception. Again, second ARC Ethics and Governance Report, what does it talks about corruption? It says corruption is a, low return, high risk activity in most countries. In India, corruption is a high return, low risk activity. So again, corruption is a norm in our country, and it was no exception during that period as well. In 1580, we have discussed this. Portugal was merged with Spain, which neglected the Portuguese interest. Plus, at that time, they discovered Brazil. Brazil is also big. So they were like, dude, where should we focus? No, not many people are focusing on Brazil right now. Everybody's eyeing on India. So let us focus on Brazil more, because of which their interest got diverted. That is what is written here. Very good. Religious policy. See, what was their policy? Their policy was, I don't know who you are, but I will find you and I will preach to you. Convert to Christianity. Pretty please convert to Christianity. How dare you will not convert to Christianity? I will make you a Christian. That was their policy. So this is not very good. The forceful conversion is not very good. This is a matter or bone of contention even right now in our country. So rise of Dutch and English maritime power, all these things will play a crucial role in the decline of Portuguese India. These points they will give you in prelims, and they will say which of the following options are correct. So be very wary about it, whatever we are discussing here. Very good. And then what are the impacts? This boy's cheeks are so cute. Definition of converter conversion. I love cute kids, So let's focus, sir and ma'am. Impact of Portuguese arrival in India. Spread of Christianity, forceful conversion, or sometimes there may be, natural conversion also. They brought printing press. It is said that there were some people who learned this printing press technology from China. Then they went to European countries. There they imparted this, technology, and then from there it came to India. It could have come easily from China to India, but it went like, circular manner, because our earth is, spherical or circular in nature. So that's what happened in the case of printing press. China had the initial knowledge about the technology, early technology associated with printing press. Fine. So again, you can have a look at all these things Western education imparted. Plus, there was one question which we have discussed a lot earlier. Which of the following crops were introduced from New World to Old World? And we have discussed how you can eliminate cotton and wheat because they used to be cultivated in Mehergarh, one of the earliest evidence of agriculture in Indian subcontinent. You find it there. So, potato, oh my God. Can you imagine your world without potato? We eat potato, we become and look like a potato. Potato was brought from New World, from these, they were brought by Portuguese here. Lady finger. Is it lady's finger? So, lady finger is, hope you understand. Bhendi, we call it. Pineapple, groundnuts, cashew and almond. So good things these guys brought. Some of these things they even brought from New World into this particular so-called Old World. Okay. Now let's talk about the Dutch people. See, Portuguese are very important. So we talked about them in detail. Dutch are not that important with due respect to Dutch people and their Dutch EIC. But Portuguese are important. And then see, we'll talk about 3 Europeans today. We'll not talk about all of them. 5 European groups, Portuguese, Dutch, English, Danes and French. So Danes and French, we'll talk about them in the next lecture, and then we'll talk something more after these people. And English people, we'll talk about them today also, and they will keep on coming here, there, everywhere when we talk about, Anglo-Maratha War, Anglo-Mysuru War, Carnatic Wars. So they will keep on coming. Even French people will keep on coming. French people will come in the next lecture. So Dutch East India Company, let's focus here, was established in 1602. Dutch people from East India Company, they arrived in India in 1605, almost 107 years after Portuguese arrived. It's a very good time difference. But these people were a good, they loved Abhishek Bachchan. What does it mean they loved Abhishek Bachchan? The meaning here is, we all love Abhishek Bachchan. He's a very, one very good thing about him is, most of the people will agree with me that he's a very humble guy based on whatever interviews you see And many people say that he's more humble than his father. Very humble guy, a very good guy. So if you see, we have done the, talked about the good things. Now let's focus on the bad aspect, because we are you people are UPSC aspirant, we should know both the dimensions. So if you see this particular image, which is associated with one of these Dhoom movies, I don't know which Dhoom. So here it was said in some of the memes or some description that he is looking somewhere else, and he is shooting somewhere else. So kahin pe nigahein, kahin pe nishana. That's what happened to Dutch people also. Dutch people were more interested in Indonesia and they were like, okay, Indonesia, we have come from so far. So we are dealing with Indonesian people. Let's deal with India also, because everybody is going to India, herd mentality. But their heart was somewhere else. Just like we have seen, Portuguese later on, they became more interested in Brazil compared to India, and they were saying that everybody is going to India. So Dutch people, they realized that Indonesia is more profitable for them. In fact, you will see even later on English EIC also. They wanted to go to Indonesia, but they realized that, oh my God, Dutch are already there. So let's focus on India right now. And Dutch people, one very good thing about them was that they realized that Indonesian spices, they are liked by Indian people, especially the southern people, South Indian people. South Indian people, we are known for our own spices as well, but Indonesian spices were in demand in that region. And Indian cotton textile clothes, that were in demand in Indonesian region. So Dutch people, a Dutch EIC, they realized that we can do this bi-directional trade. We can make Indian textile an export item in Indonesia, and in return, we can take these Indonesian spices to India. So this is one point why they were not able to settle here for long. Plus, there was a battle of Amboina massacre, which happened in Indonesia. What we have just discussed, that even British EIC, they are interested in Indonesia. So they will go there. The numbers are not very huge. So English EIC's presence is more in India. Dutch EIC's presence is more in Indonesia. A massacre will happen in Indonesia, where Dutch people will kill some English people, because of which this matter will escalate, and Dutch people will realize that we have to leave India, because a similar kind of massacre can be done by English EIC in India if we don't leave it soon. And then after their defeat in Battle of Bidara, which will happen around 1759, after Battle of Palasi, they left India more or less. So this is one history, one simplified history which we have to understand about Dutch. We don't have to do PhD in them. With due respect to them, they will establish some factories or some settlements in Masulipatam, Pulikat. That we have to know, but this is the story which we should know, we have to know, So again, so after the Portuguese came the Dutch. 1602, they established the Dutch East India Company. Please understand the chronology here. 1600, English EIC was established. English EIC was established. It is said that it was established in 1599 only. Merchant Adventurers, its name was. 1602, Dutch EIC was established. By this logic, English people should have arrived here earlier, but that did not happen. 1605, this Dutch people will come here. Dutch arrives, or Dutch arrived. And 1608, EIC means English people will come. So they were little, sust. Oh my God. They were little, they had some, or maybe they were suffering from some complacency. Whatever happened, they arrived late. So this chronology you have to remember. Sometimes people get confused that, oh my God, English EIC was created first, so they came first. There is a difference between the two. Creation of EIC and their arrival in India, these two are two different events. You cannot, equate them as one. So this point you have to understand. 1600 English EIC created, they arrived in India in 1608. 1602 Dutch EIC was created, they arrived much earlier, they only took 3 years to come here. So Dutch Parliament gave it a charter empowering it to make war and peace, do whatever you want to do. Make love, not war. Make love and war, both. So again, Mongols policy, they used to do love as well as war. So you can understand what is happening here. We have discussed the chronology. We have discussed this particular meme also. What does it mean in context of Dutch EIC? Their main interest was in the Indonesian archipelago and the Spice Islands in North India. We have discussed this as well. But they discovered that they can use this Indian trade, or they can use, Indian cotton textile for bi-directional trade. So that is what is written here. Good demand of Indian cloth in Indonesian region. In return, Indians demanded pepper and spices of Indonesia. We want that spices. Our chili is not that spicy. Let's have Indonesian chili. We should have variations. We should have options. So hence, one of the first credits of making Indian cloth as an item of export goes to Dutch. So we can see even the contribution of Dutch here. And then what will happen? We have just discussed. These guys are more in number in Indonesia. English people are less in number in Indonesia. There will be another massacre which will be happening, which is known as Amboina massacre. We'll talk about it. The first factory was established at Masulipatam, and there is a question here. So Masulipattnam is this place, and they established their first factory in 1605. So always, I have told you, this map will help you a lot in understanding Dutch settlement. Don't look at the years per se; those years are generally wrong. And then they also established their settlement in Pulicat in 1610. So these things you have to understand. There, where are their settlements? 1605, the same year when they came here, they established their settlement in Masulipattnam, and then Pulicat 5 years after. Pulicat Lake is a very famous lake. You have to tell me in the comment section which kind of lake it is. Is it a saline lake or brackish lake or freshwater lake? And Pulicat Lake is in which state? It's at the boundary of two states. So you have to tell me it lies at the boundary of which two states. This is actually very fascinating. So 1610, they signed a treaty with King of Chandragiri. You don't have to remember about the local rulers with due respect to them. You just have to focus on, because if we start learning and all, remembering all of them, you have to remember a lot of stuff. And there is a limit to how much you have to remember here. Just remember the locations where they have been established. And they minted their gold coins, which were known as pagoda. So this fact is important. And then why they were not able to stay here for long? Because of this Amboina massacre, which happened in 1623. 18 years after they arrived in India, this happened in Indonesia, where they are in larger number, where Dutch killed 10 Englishmen and 9 Japanese. You may feel like this is only 10 Englishmen, bro. More than these number of people were killed in New Delhi railway station in the stampede which happened when they were going to Mahakumbh. But again, as it's a sorry fact, but the life of Indian people are very cheap in our country. We die easily. Nobody gives again, we can agree to disagree on that, but that is not that cheap in other countries. We are not saying, like, this is actually a sad thing. The incident which happened even in Mahakumbh, where stampede happened, then the incident which happened in New Delhi railway station. These are all things which we should condemn. We should ask government what they are thinking about it, they're doing about it, rather than taking some YouTuber for saying certain things. We are not saying whatever that particular YouTuber is saying is correct or wrong or not. Yes, it is wrong, punish him, but don't make it such a big issue that all the other issues don't matter at all. So you can understand what we are discussing here. These are things which we have to understand as human beings, what electronic media is trying to portray and what are their intentions. So here 10 Englishmen died, and this became such a bone of contention that even now sometimes Dutch and English people, they talk about it in their parliament, just like we talk about Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and we say to different to England that say sorry for it. Or when we talk about there's so many things, like there is a tragedy which involves Canada, and that tragedy happened where they did not allow one of our ship to go there, and Komagata Maru incident, that is called. For that, Justin Trudeau said sorry, and I am very sorry, Justin Bieber song. So again, there are certain incidents, even if they have happened 100 years or 200 years back, people still talk about it because they are that important. This was that incident. This still gets talked about it in Dutch and British Parliament, this Amboina massacre, and this became a major bone of contention. English people, they were like, dude, come to India, we will kill you here. We will do the same massacre. That was the threat. So they were like, dude, let's focus on Indonesia. Let's focus on one thing at a time. Let's not do multitasking. And after this Battle of Bidara, which will happen in 1759, where Britishers or the Dutch people will try to take the advantage of Nawab of Bengal, because we will talk about it when we'll talk about Bengal, that Bengal Nawab, he was also very frustrated with the English EIC. So he will try to take advantage of that. They will be defeated, Dutch will be defeated, and they're like, dude, we are done. Let's move from here. We have no business being here. Let's focus on Indonesia. Otherwise, who knows, we will lose that particular portion as well. So all these things are happening. Amboina massacre, they can ask you this. It is a bone of contention between which two European powers. You have to understand Dutch and English. Then English people. They arrived in 1608. Their company was established. Merchant Adventurers was established in 1599. The Indian Vertical was established. English East India Company was established in 1600. They got a charter to trade in India exclusively for 15 years. These charters are very important. Our exclusive trade is also very important, because we know they are not coming from, like they are not going from Gurgaon to Delhi. Although Gurgaon to Delhi is also a good distance to cover, but they are going from they're coming from a very far off place, and there is lots of money which is getting involved here, because again, it's not air transportation or all these things, which is very quick and comparatively cheaper. It's not like air transportation is very cheap, but they used to take months to come here. So much money was involved. So whenever these companies, they used to go to a particular place, they always wanted exclusive privilege so that they could acquire enough profits. Otherwise, what is the use of me going to India and taking 3 months time to reach there and doing the trade? So give me exclusive privilege or I'm not going there. So that's why this exclusive privilege, these charters matter a lot. We'll talk about this in detail when we are talking about, acts from 1773 to 1935, which we'll do later on. So in 1599, a company to trade with East was formed under the auspice. Again, you can read it. We have talked about it. Merchant Adventurers, and this was popularly known as East India Company. 1600, Royal Charter was issued. They can do exclusive trade for 15 years. But again, just like Dutch people, their interest was in Indonesia, but because Dutch were already there, it's all about who is going first. And sometimes you get the benefit, if you're doing something first, starting a venture first, you will get the benefit. So because of this overwhelming presence of Dutch, they shifted their preference towards India, and Dutch did the exact opposite. They were like, dude, let's focus on Indonesia. And thus in 1608, Surat in Gujarat was established as a trade transit point. But we have already solved a lot of questions on this. The trade or the fort settlement which was actually made in Surat, that was done in 1613 after taking permission from Jahangir. So many questions has been asked by UPSC, which we have discussed in the previous lecture, Again, company now planned to open up a factory in Surat and send Captain Hawkins. That happened in 1609. He came, and then we are talking about Captain Hawkins, how he could speak Turkish language. He came in a ship called Hector. You can forget about all these things. Just remember the chronology. Who came first? William Hawkins or Thomas Roe? William Hawkins. Sir Thomas Roe came in 1615. By that time, situation has changed. Battle of Swali, 1612. We have talked about that. How Portuguese were defeated. Now, EIC is the rising sun, and everybody respects and salutes the rising sun. Oh my God. So on arrival, he went to the court of Jahangir. We have discussed these things, bro. This is actually a revision which is happening. The English were given the royal firman to set up factories on the west coast, but the English were not satisfied. They wanted a permission for whole of India, and that was not given because Jahangir, in literal sense, was terrified of Portuguese naval supremacy. Hawkins had to leave at that time due to Portuguese intrigues, and he was like, dude, what is going on? Anything is done, like, fine, but politics, and believe me, these things happen. Politics happen anywhere and everywhere, and that is actually cumbersome. That you don't have too much control on the politics thing. So yeah, William Hawkins is this perturbed. So English early factories. So here there are question mark. We have discussed this first settlement they established in 1613 at Surat. So here what does this particular line mean? In English 1611, English opened their first factory in the south at Masulipatam. Everybody loved Masulipatam. Even Dutch were there. Masulipatam. What is so fascinating about Masulipatam? The Dutch people, EIC, everybody is setting up their settlements there. We have talked about, 1605 Dutch set up their settlement here. 1600, they established their settlement in Pulicat. Did, English open their factory in Masulipatam just because Dutch were already there and Dutch were a formidable ally of EIC, or there is something more to it? If you know something more about it, you can post it in the comment section, sir and ma'am. So here there is a question mark, because if you understand this, we have talked about that first settlement was Surat 1613. 1611, they established a factory in Masulipatam, but it is a temporary settlement. It's not a permanent settlement. Here you can see permanent factory, and this settlement which was there in Masulipatam, it's a temporary settlement. So that's why there is a question mark, so that you don't get confused. First permanent settlement or permanent factory of English in India, that is Surat in 1613. They arrived here in 1608, but first permanent factory was set up in 1613. Then there can be temporary settlement, this and that. First permanent factory, 1613 Surat. We have already solved questions on it. You have to keep on looking at the locations. You can discard the dates. We have discussed about it. There are discrepancies in dates which are given in map, but locations will help you in understanding what is happening and why it is happening the way it is happening. Masulipatam, we have seen, everybody's coming here. Dutch came, so English EIC were like, dude, if you will go there, I will go there. Tera picha na main chodunga soni. There is a song also, that I will keep on coming after you. I love you so much. I love you. There was a song also of Allu Arjun. So yes, let's focus. So now we have discussed all these things, and we will talk about English later on also. The major point here is you have to understand, especially the points related to Portuguese and Dutch. In 1615, Sir Thomas Roe arrived, and now because Battle of Swali has happened of 1612, English EIC has defeated Portuguese, so now they will get so many things. He obtained royal farman, blah blah blah, and they were allowed to establish their factories in whole of India. But they were like, dude, even Jahangir is powerful, even Shah Jahan is powerful, even Aurangzeb is powerful. So let's first of all right now focus on South India, because they have comparatively lesser influence, and there the rulers are not that rigid and not that strong, so we can make factories in our own way. So initially they shifted their focus towards the south, but when later Mughal rulers will come, which we have talked about in the previous lecture, and they were not so strong, then they will start taking advantage of all these things. So as history teaches us, everybody takes advantage of the weak. You have to be strong. Even if you're not strong, pretend to be. No one can tell the difference. This is an image, this is a map, this is a slide which we have discussed earlier. You can have a look at it. Fine. English factories in Madras. Again, you don't have to do, PhD here. Just have a look at the chronology, how they're establishing their factory in Madras. 1632, this is just again a period when Shah Jahan is ruling, powerful Mughal rulers. First, fifth of the six powerful rulers of Mughals, they are ruling. So they are focusing in the southern region where the influence is comparatively lesser. So just remember, you can have a look at the chronology. This we will talk about later on also. What is important is this Madras factory, this is known as Fort St. George. The Calcutta factory will be known as Fort St. William. This point you have to keep in mind. The chronology will keep on coming. So around 1651, they will focus their attention to Bengal, Hooghly region, 1651. You again have to do the chronology. Who is ruling in this period? Again, Shah Jahan is ruling 1627 to 1658. Who is Suja? He is the brother of Aurangzeb, who died in Myanmar or something. Very tragic incident happened to him and his family in Myanmar. He was running away from Aurangzeb because you know what Aurangzeb did to his brothers. We have talked about it in previous lecture. And then what happened to Suja and his family? Myanmar king, and they were like, we will send you to Hajj. And they were not sending Suja and his family to Hajj. Suja was very suspicious that we have already given you the money. Why you are not sending us to Hajj? And then he was like, give me your daughter and everything, or we will kill you. And all these things happened. And finally they killed Suja and his families. And then Aurangzeb was like, how dare you kill my brother? I will kill my brother. I can kill my brother, but you can't kill my brother. I will kill you all. Then he sent his, army to Myanmar, Aurangzeb. So Sultan Suja, a tragic story. You can read about him more, but it's tragic. We already have so many tragic things to deal with in our life. So again, hope you understood it. So please, the point here is we will talk about all these chronologies later on also, because the fight with French people will happen and you will hear about these things. But the important point is fort at Calcutta, Fort St. William, fort around Madras region, Fort St. George. This point you have to keep in mind. Then there will be other forts also, Fort St. David, blah, blah, blah. That you don't have to focus too much on. Fort St. George, Fort St. William is very important right now from exam perspective. This Dory thing, we have already discussed why this happened. There is a quid pro quo involved here. We have discussed this. Internal developments. This particular slide, you don't have to remember it. This is just given so that you can understand how slowly and gradually English EIC is giving more and more powers to their directors and governors as they are acquiring more and more territory. 1625, they have been given judicial power. 1661, they have been given, or they were empowered to send ships of war with men and ammunition for safety of its possession overseas. 1683, power to declare war and make peace, to raise and maintain an army. So the power is gradually increasing because they are realizing that they had underestimated, or English Crown is realizing that they had underestimated English EIC. They are very good when it comes to capturing territories and ruling over it. So they're like, okay, let's give them more power, let's give them more authority. If they're ruling more, maybe they will send us more tax. And if we are investing, or let's say, investing in their shares, maybe we'll earn more. So let's give them more power, more or less, English company and their directors. So that is what is happening here. Now, this is what we have to, or this was what we have to discuss in this, arrival of Europeans or advent of Europeans in India. We still have to talk about two more Europeans, that is Danes and French. We'll talk about them in the next lecture. We will keep on talking about French and English EIC more and more later on also, because they will keep on coming. Carnatic Wars, we have to deal with them separately as well. In the meantime, this was a question which we have discussed earlier. I have given you again here also so that your revision happens. What is the answer of this particular question? If you know it, you can post it in the comment section, And you already know it, we have to eliminate. You can pause me here. Cotton and wheat, these were already there in we were cultivating it in earlier times in Mehergarh as well, in Harappan period as well. So it was already there in the old world. The answer is tobacco, cocoa and rubber. A. So that's it. And this chutney music is what? Just like we are talking about European people coming to India, and sometimes what they did was, and we'll talk about plantation agriculture, and these European people, these foreign people, they took Indians to different lands. They took us to Caribbean lands. So we went to Caribbean islands, Indian people, and like there were many people from Bihar, UP area, Bhojpuri music and Bhojpuri language we used to talk, and so Bhojpuri music and the calypso music of Caribbean islands, they came together, and that is known as chutney music. You may feel like, sir, why are you teaching us this? Because NCERT talks about chutney music. If NCERT talks about chutney music, it is important from exam perspective. So, tu lagavelu jab lipstick combined with a calypso song, I don't know any calypso song, or maybe I do. I may have heard about Dikchik, 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 but I don't know that is a calypso song. So, Bhojpuri music plus calypso song, that comes, and chutney music is born. So, you do research on this chutney music, and you will realize I am not kidding, and it looks and it sounds very similar to Bhojpuri music. Chutti Kai Jo Kasam Aayi Nahi. There was a song of Pawan Singh. Oh my God, what are we talking about? But this is actually important. So here we are understanding what happens when people go to different territories, how mixing of culture happen, and because of this, new things emerge like chutney music. NCERT talks about it, so it is important from exam perspective. Theek hai. So again, I am uploading all these PDFs on Fun Study with Shubh, because study should be fun. It should not be tedious and boring. So I've uploaded up until 19 lecture. We are doing which lecture? 26th lecture, and I will upload more and more lectures. I'm also uploading the NCERT chapter, sir and ma'am. So you can join this Fun Study with Shubh. Do join it and become a part of my family. So that's it. Take care. Be blessed. I will see you soon. Tata, bye bye.